Hello, hi, Jeffery Kin, Sarasota Rising Living Arts Festival, Sarasota. But today I get to be a part of Visit Sarasota's Behind the Masterpiece. And we get to talk to amazing people in our community who really make a difference in our arts world on our cultural coast. So I would love to welcome Joseph Holt, who we're overdue to have a chat like this anyway. Do you mind that we're going to have like a chat, but other people are going to be listening?
No, that's fine. I'm just sorry we're missing the tea that goes along with it, you know?
I know. Okay, next time, I promise.
Next time.
I
Live
promise.
and in person, we do tea.
Yes. So your official title is the Artistic Director of Choral Artists of Sarasota. Did I do okay?
You did. That's one of my titles.
Yes, I know. You
right,
wear
because
a lot of hats.
I have several hats here, and the other hat that I wear is the producer and host for the Sarasota Institute of Lifetime Learning's Music Mondays programs.
So we love Sil. I remember Sil from back in the day when they used to use the players for many years. So we would have Sil there.
Right. That was the global issues side of it. I don't think that June LaBelle ever had the music portion, right?
Oh, bless her heart.
Yes, I mean, she started this whole thing, over at Holly Hall, and then Ed took it when she passed away, and then when he passed away, they passed it on to me. So
what a legacy! That's a legacy right there of people.
Well, those are huge shoes to fill. I mean, think about it; those two, especially, they're giants in this world.
Yeah, and then of course now there's people that are moving here that have no idea who they were or what they're. I guess that's part of our role. Is a lot of things that we do last forever, and then some things. When it's done, it's done. There's like a live, you either see it or you don't, right?
Right, exactly. Well, you know how it is too. There's that ebb and flow of things as they, through a season, through decades, through years, and people come and go. But
you also are still performing, so you are, a performer as well as all these other things. I was expecting you to say, well,
there is that other hat. Yes, I wear the hat where I do play the piano on occasion.
I've heard.
That was my original training as a kid, and then through schooling and the like. But next year, I'm going to be playing, for example, for the Artist Series quite a few times, and a few other things that are happening. This year, I played with Robin Bell. We did the Gershwin Concerto.
I can't believe I missed that. I missed that show. I don't know how. I literally the weekend after. So we need a reminder bling to come up sometimes when I just totally phased out. It's crazy. Did you enjoy performing as much as you do your work?
Gosh, yes. I mean, there's nothing like that excitement you get and that energy you get from an audience.
Yeah.
When you're standing up there and you're actually, making that performance happen. And working with people like Robin Bell. I mean, that's one of life's great gifts right there.
Great people in our community. I mean, we really are lucky. I'm going to go back because you kind of glossed over it. You said, "Oh yeah, I took piano lessons," and I envisioned you as your parents forcing Joseph to go practice the piano, and you hated them for it, and you snuck away. Are there stories there about?
Yes. Yeah. There's a great story there. So you were so kind to use my full name, but however, when I was growing up, I was little Joey Holt.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Because my dad is Joe Holt. He's the senior. I'm the junior. And at roughly age 7, my parents decided they had to do something with me, because I was so energetic and so into this, that, and the other, and creating havoc in the community.
They love this.
We have to figure out something to do with him that's going to focus all this energy.
Wow.
So I was given a choice of one of 3 things.
Okay.
Either play Little League baseball.
Okay.
Join the Cub Scouts, or take piano lessons.
And you did all 3.
No, I did not, because those were the days. I'm sorry. In the 60s, you had a choice of something.
That's true.
You didn't do multiple things the way kids do now.
Oh, yeah, true.
Right?
Yeah.
So my grandmother played the piano, and quietly behind the scenes, she is now lobbying me and the whole family to say, get that kid into piano. It's going to help him a lot. Wow. And the music director at the church where my dad was a minister said, he has a little bit of aptitude. Let's see what happens. My wife teaches piano.
And there you have it.
We did not have a piano at home, however. So for the first 6 months, I learned the theory, all sorts of stuff, how to read music. And then I finally got to, practice on a real instrument. And then it became really easy. Well, then you say, my parents were forcing me. Well, they actually had to ask me to stop playing.
Wow.
So it was the opposite effect, because I took to it like, a fish to water.
Wow. I mean, that's thank you. And thank you, Mom and Dad, for having, and Grandma for having the wherewithal to help find. Think how many people never find. I always feel that, like, sometimes you never find your thing. There are people out there that never find their thing. So
right, exactly.
Look how blessed we are. So I love that you're a PK. You should have said that right away, because preachers' kids in Ohio, where I'm from, they were always the wildest and the craziest. So
that's why they had to figure out something for me to do.
Right. So it all makes sense. So you wear a lot of hats. I want to make sure that people know how to get a hold of you for your main gig, which is the Choral Artists of Sarasota. So I'm sure you guys have a website. I just want to make sure that people are attaching you, the talented Joseph Holt, to Choral Artists. So is it right? Is it Choral Artists Sarasota.org?
Correct. ChoralArtistsSarasota.org.
Awesome. Because I do want people to find out, because there's amazing people behind the scenes. And this just happens to be one of those things where, we're going to be talking about the stuff that's coming up. You have a Memorial Day thing coming up. But I think there's always just something, like, I love finding out, like, where inspiration comes from, or where your ideas come from. And so as an artistic director, where does what makes your heart pound as an artistic director? What makes you feel and think and feel satisfied with what you do?
So, it's a complicated procedure, because inspiration, creativity is not something you can just turn on a dime and say, okay, today I'm going to be creative and make a program. It's something that evolves over time. And we are the essence of where we have been, who we've been with, and our experiences. So for me, it stretches way back to when I was a young child, all the things, so all that history goes into my thought process when I'm making programs. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's a lot behind all that, a lot of history, obviously, and of course, I was in the Army for 20 years. I was the principal pianist with the United States Army Band and Chorus. And, so that informs me too, as far as, a patriotic sense or, a militaristic sense in a way, but also a, love of country. And so that's why, for example, some of our Memorial Day or July 4th programs have been some of our most successful.
Right.
Because, I had that, and in fact, at one point I was helping out behind the scenes with the National Symphony and the Capitol Fourth.
Wow.
The big program happens, at the Capitol building every year for July 4th. You would never see me on camera. If you saw me on camera, there was a problem.
Uh-oh.
So
I know that feeling. You're the expectant father pacing back and forth so how many people work with you at the Choral Artists? How big is your team?
So we have an executive director. We also have a chorus manager, a librarian, we have section leaders, and we have upwards, it depends upon the year, but upwards of 40 people that are singing in this ensemble. And this ensemble, it's a storied history here, because this was begun in 1978 by Arden Fowler and Stevenson Moe and George Stevenson. So, George Bledsoe, that's his name, George Bledsoe. So the three of them started what was then called Gloria Musicae. You remember that name?
That's right. I knew I was going to make you do that for me, because I'm going, what was it? What was it? That's right. Gloria Musicae. Yes.
And the issue was, that when I came on board, which is in 2009, the organization was in a little bit of a cultural valley and needed to have some reinvigoration. So they brought me on board to reinvigorate them, reimagine them. And at one point I suggested a name change as a possibility. The founder said, absolutely not. You're never going to change this name. But ultimately, 7 years later, we decided it was right to change the name, because people were confusing Gloria Musicae with a church group, with a group that speaks Latin, or a group that is somehow involved with the church, or La Musica.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
The Chamber Music Festival here, La Musica.
That's
So they
right.
would, like, wait a minute, are you part of this? Or are you not? So the change was made at that point to Choral Artists of Sarasota. You remember the Florida West Coast Symphony changed its name to the Sarasota Orchestra.
Yeah.
The Sarasota Ballet, I can't remember if they were always called that. Fusion was called, it was Fusion. Now it's Contemporary Dance of Sarasota.
Right,
so,
right.
it basically, we tied it, we need to have a regional affiliation. That's
Right.
why we changed the name. And it also represents who we are, really, choral artists. So that's how that came about.
And so where do you find, so is there are there many Joseph Holts all over the country and you guys kind of talk? Because when I ran the Players, there was artistic directors and we all kind of had a website and we could kind of chat with each other about what's hot and what's not working and what is. How do you find, your people and do you talk to other artistic directors?
That's interesting. So this organization was established to promote local professional singers.
Okay.
That's exactly what Arden Fowler, she wanted to have. She was coming down from New York. She realized there was a lack of opportunity for professional singers, wanted to have this opportunity here in Southwest Florida. Established Gloria Musicae mainly to employ professional singers from the area.
Wow.
So we have, over the years, developed, quite a cadre of professional, and it stretches all the way. We've had people coming over from Orlando on occasion, up from Fort Myers, down from Tampa, but in this regional area, there's enough of a body of professional singers that we were able to make it work. Right. So as far as an association goes, there are several. There's Chorus America, which is a great collection of choruses from across the country. There's also the American Choral Directors Association. So and within those groups, you can talk and chat, and there are all sorts of platforms, whether it's email or there are websites, and you can ask questions and pose, answer questions that somebody might have. We also have a lending library, which is kind of cool.
Ooh, yeah. What is that?
So our library was all right. So I don't know if you remember the name Cordelia Beatty.
Oh yeah,
here in Sarasota, right? Mm-hmm. So she established she gave the organization a grant before I came on board, and it was to establish a lending library. So anybody from across the country can write into us asking us for 30 copies of the Bach B minor Mass, say, for example, and we would have those available, and they would just pay for the shipping and they would return it to us. And if there's a score that's missing, they'd replace it. But, it was just a way of helping each other out throughout the country.
Wow. That's fascinating. I mean, I know that there's a lot of work going on. I know your season is almost over, so you almost have time to breathe. But so you have something coming up on Memorial Day, right? On the 24th?
Right. So Memorial Day technically is on the 26th, Monday the 26th. Okay. Right. But our performance is on Saturday, May 24th at 4:00 p.m. at Church of the Palms. And we partner with the Lakewood Ranch Wind Ensemble, one of our newest ensembles that's here. Their first performance, was November of 2019.
Oh.
Their second performance was supposed to be March of 2020.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
Yeah.
So their second performance was actually with us at the Sarasota Opera House for a 4th of July in 2021. But it's a very exciting program because it includes a variety of music that is not only patriotic, but also for Memorial Day, you have to have those various things because we recognize the ultimate sacrifice that people have made in service to the country.
Right.
That's what a Memorial Day is about.
Right.
I've actually expanded the definition of Memorial Day this year. I felt like we needed to go back and also memorialize some of the people, some of our great patriots who've established this country in the first place. And some of the things they did. And these are all, things that we enjoy to this day, the freedoms and the liberties, et cetera, et cetera. So this year happens to be the 250th anniversary of Paul Revere. So we're going to do a special thing about Paul Revere. The famous Walt Whitman poem has been set by Gwyneth Walker. We're going to do that as part of this. We're also going to do some of the words of Thomas Jefferson.
Interesting.
Because next year is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So in advance of that, we're memorializing that. And he wrote, the words that are so poignant with that is the God who gave us liberty. The God who gave us life also gave us liberty at the same time.
Mm.
So it's a really, I think for these days we need to really focus on those words and what those mean. And then it felt to me that incorporating the Gettysburg Address was going to be vital.
Wow.
Because the end of the Gettysburg Address, it is, that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm. What was there ever a person that, you're very fortunate to have a musical family. Were there other people in your life that kind of helped you along the way? Because I'm always after those mentor, because I always feel people like you who are kind of mentoring lots of people have been mentored.
Yes.
So are there?
So you mentioned the musical family. Let me just talk about that for a second, because having a Presbyterian minister father, who had a great voice, so I would play for him. My mom also had a great voice.
Oh,
and
okay.
so there was that issue. So that's where I began to develop this affinity for the human voice. Was at home because I would sit and play the piano. They would all sing and all sorts of stuff. And my tastes were pretty eclectic when I was younger. So you remember the cassette players?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all right. So most people in our audience, I think, will remember a cassette player, but not the younger ones. I had a cassette that I had put on my favorite pieces. My favorite pieces being the Mozart Eine kleine Nachtmusik, a Beethoven piano sonata, a Beatles tune called Michel Ma Belle, because I just loved that Ma Belle, right? And a little tune called Daddy Sang Bass. I don't know if you remember that. That was
Daddy sang bass, Mama sang tenor.
Mama sang tenor, exactly. So I mean, that's my eclectic taste, from the little kid.
My brain went where your brain went. That's crazy.
So as far as mentors are concerned, obviously you have your individual teachers,
right?
I mean, that's a big part of it, being a musician and the like. I had one teacher in high school who probably was the most influential from a musical perspective. And, I hearken back to her. I mean, I started working with her when I was about 13 years old, and I knew her throughout, the rest of her life, up until the mid 90s when she passed away. And, she was just a, unique part of helping me be the person I am and molding me into the musician I am. And so that was huge.
What were can you name something maybe that is a direct, passed down from her?
Well, she was always encouraging me to be non-apologetic. How about that? Non-apologetic.
Great lesson.
She said, right, you are, you state your case and don't back down. In other words, if you're right, if you feel you're in your bones, you're absolutely right, and don't be afraid of expressing yourself. It was huge because, as a young keyboard player, playing, and she said, you're playing and it's great. You have it, but it's all interior.
Right.
You're not letting it out. So, that was her big contribution to me. And now I suppose some people might say I let it out too much, but
no. So what have there been some obstacles that have been in your way that you've gotten through? I mean, I'm sure life isn't always a bed of roses or, all that, but is there something that you've overcome that an audience member might be like, wow, I've done that too?
Well, obviously there can be a physical impediment, right? So that impediment, because since you're playing all the time,
right.
There could be issues that happen with your arms, your hands, your fingers, God knows what,
Yeah.
So when I was at the Eastman School of Music, all right, this is the end of my sophomore year, so this is roughly 1979. I had there was an accident. I was playing one time, and my hand, literally, I'll hold it up like this, right? So my hand went. Wow. And would not move. I had to literally pull all the fingers out. So I had to take an entire year off to correct that. An entire year. Yeah. And believe it or not, I worked on an Angus cattle and tobacco farm in Kentucky. part of my therapy.
Nothing, nothing better. We sold hay to lots of farmers down there. So who knows? Maybe the hay that I baled ended up down there where, the world's getting smaller and smaller. So,
well, you and I are probably connected somewhere,
you know what? I feel that. I often feel that. Wouldn't it be great to be able to have somebody point out how people have touched your life throughout the years? And I'll bet you there's some major surprises that you're that crazy guy at the airport that one time that was afraid to fly or something. I just always think that there are some cool things like that. We are completely blessed. If you weren't doing music, because obviously it's a huge part of your life, was there another calling by chance? It's one of my favorite questions because everyone usually has that weird, I wanted to be a paleontologist or.
So I don't recall any other choice.
Wow.
There was, from the age of roughly 9 or 10, I'm already starting to have dreams about being a musician. So, that was going to happen come hell or high water.
Right.
And then I had this teacher who comes along and says, go for it, be non-apologetic. So I think that from that point forward, there was just no option. Because, ultimately, we don't choose the creativity and the talent we're given. It chooses us, or it's given to us, and it's up to us to then nurture it and create and do whatever we can with it. And that's exactly been, my philosophy this whole time. Why would I bother being anything else? There's nothing else I can't even imagine anything that would give me this much pleasure and this much enjoyment. And especially because what we do is we channel all this creativity that's come before us. As a musician, all we're doing is recreating something. We're like a living museum piece.
Yeah.
And that's what we do.
That's fascinating. I do believe that sometimes we are born with it, and then sometimes you can learn. But I always feel like a lot of it is just it's either
innate
or it's not. It's that the universe tells you. The universe speaks.
Would you have done anything different than being in the theater?
Literally, I wanted to be an archaeologist. So if you were now looking at where you are in your life, is there ever a day that you think, I'm going to retire? Or are you one of those people that's just going to just keep driving that boat, just driving that ship until you can't drive it anymore? Where are you in that world?
All right. So you're touching on a nerve at this point. So I can say this, last year I reached the august age of 65 years old.
Okay.
So, and at a certain point, you have to recognize that, your own set of skills may not be as finely tuned or finely honed as they should be. Not that I've reached that point, but I've lived through a point in my life where, earlier in my career, I worked with someone who should have stepped down and didn't. And it was really painful to watch and and then I ultimately left and then moved here to Sarasota. He didn't actually retire, from his position until he was asked to retire. And I never want to be in that position. So, you always want to be in control of who you are, where you're at, and make sure that, your contribution. And I still feel that, my contributions are worthwhile. And I still have something to offer and something to say.
Right.
Has my time come yet? Well, it's coming soon. I can tell you that, but is it written in the clouds yet? Or,
I feel like sometimes places call me, like Machu Picchu called me, and Madeira Island off of the coast of Portugal calls me. Like all these, my thing is, I think the one thing the festival has helped me start to do is start thinking outside of the box about being more active around the world, which I love to do. So sometimes our jobs help us, maybe fulfill something that is part of our destiny that we don't even know, what the hell we're doing, but we're doing. Sometimes I guess I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it anyway.
If you're talking about travel, now that's another aspect of this because, I love to travel, love to experience new worlds and new countries and new cultures and try new foods and see new sights. And then this summer, we're going off to the stands. Now, you may say, what the hell are the stands?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. All 5 stands we're going off to this summer just to experience the Silk Road, because that was the great migratory route between China and the Middle East.
That sounds fascinating. So travel is in your future.
Oh, always. I mean, travel's been in the past. It'll be in the future. I mean, I can say this. Most people have at least visited 5 or 6 continents, right?
Yeah.
And they can say, likely they've stayed in those 5 or 6 continents. I've visited all 7, and I've slept on all 7.
Wow.
Now think about that
for a second. You were just flying through. No.
Yeah. And we were in Antarctica, and we actually camped out overnight on the peninsula. So I can say I slept in all 7.
You win.
Not that it's a contest or anything.
Everything's a contest. So thank you, Joe, Mr. Holt. Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
But you know what's funny? You use that title, but I actually have a better title for you.
Oh,
and it has to do with my Army career. You see, because I'm not only an Army person. I have a doctorate in music. So, but the Army always had to come first. So they would always call me in the Army Sergeant Dr. Joe. So there's your new title.
Sergeant Doctor. Yeah. You know what? Just call me. I don't care what you call me. I don't care. I love it. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your talent with us. We're so blessed to have you and Choral Artists of Sarasota in our lives. Our Cultural Coast is better because of you. So don't retire. Keep at it. And we'll hopefully, maybe we'll talk to you again sometime when you put on another hat. How's that?
Well, all right. Sounds good. Thanks, Jeffrey. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Jeffery Kin as a part of Visit Sarasota's Behind the Masterpiece. We love listening to our arts practitioners, and we want you to listen as well. So make sure you join us at sarasotapodcast.com, and we'll see you at the next interview.